Hello friends, I'm happy to share my views on the conveyance deed with you through the medium of 5 or 6 videos. First, a disclaimer. These series of videos are not produced by the managing committee and do not reflect their official views. Before I begin, I would like to pay homage, a Shraddhanjali, to our senior member of Athashri Managing Committee and also who was a participant of the legal committee, our beloved and dear Shri Ajit Kumar Dighe, who was popularly called as Ajit Dada. This ever-smiling person was always ready to help and lend his wisdom to us. He was an expert at corporate law, corporate finance, and taxation. And all his merits cannot be summarized in a few words. He departed for his heavenly abode sometime late in the night on 1st of August 2020, and that leaves a big gap in our heart for this lovable person. I would also like to express my gratitude to our chairman, Dr. Krishnamurthy, our secretary, Shri Suresh Dev, our joint secretary, Shri Upendra Lele, all the members of the managing committee, members of the legal committee, our honorable advocate, Shri Shekhar Patil, and Mr. Shashank Paranspe, the chief promoter. Shortly after last year's annual general body meeting, the managing committee formed a small legal committee to look into the aspects of carrying out the conveyance of the property to the society's name. Advocate Shekhar Patil was engaged for that purpose to lend legal advice and to check all the documentation. Shekhar Patil has a long experience in transfer of property cases, and he was also involved in transfer of properties of the landowners to the Forest Trails Township. So he's very well acquainted with the land as well as all the legal aspects. I would also like to thank Shri Shashank Paranspe. He has been very accommodative, and throughout our discussions, we had a person-to-person talk with him. It was not through any intermediaries. And that is what has brought about this document to the satisfaction of everyone. This work began shortly after October. So it's been almost 9 months. There have been hundreds of email exchanges, many hours of discussion in person, over the internet, online, as well as exchange of messages. The whole draft went through many revisions, I think about 7 or 8 revisions, in order to meet our special requirements. So what you see is the crystallized form of the effort of many people over many hours and through meticulous checking of facts and crafting words so as to suit our requirements. In the course of this discussion, I would like you to refer to the following laws because they are all relevant to the conveyance deed. I shall be giving links below the video in the YouTube channel. First of all is the Indian Contracts Act 1872, Transfer of Property Act 1882, Indian Easements Act 1882. Now all these three acts are very old acts, as you can see from the dates. They have been in India for a long time. There have been many cases. They are very well researched and they are very well understood. So there is very little ambiguity about the application of the clauses of these laws. Then of course the Maharashtra Ownership Flats Act 1963, which mandates transfer of property through conveyance to a cooperative housing society, and the Maharashtra Cooperative Societies Act 1960, which governs the bylaws of our society. Further, an extensive and in-depth study of our agreement to sell was made by all the members of the legal committee. The society bylaws were studied at depth to see how they impact our role in this process. The record of land rights, which is known as Sat Bara extract, were also studied. For your information, the Sat Bara is actually two parts, Form 7 and Form 12. Form 7 gives the details of the owners and Form 12 gives the details of land use. Land use such as crops, loans, pending litigation, etc. You will be able to view samples of that during the course of these 5 or 6 videos. First of all, I would like to mention that we must understand the difference between a conveyance deed versus an agreement to sell. All of us made an agreement to sell with the builder, and then we were made payments, and then we were given possession of our flats. Following a completion or occupancy certificate submitted by the builder, and this occupancy certificate is issued by the PMRDA. But there is a major difference between conveyance of property and an agreement to sell. An agreement to sell is only a promise to transfer the property in question. It's an agreement or a promise. That's what it is. That's all. The purchase of a property is not complete without a valid conveyance deed. So for all the agreements to sell that we have signed, they must finally have the stamp of approval of the conveyance deed, without which this property doesn't really belong to any one of us. The agreement to sell does not in itself create any transfer of rights. So we should be very clear about the importance and the difference of conveyance deed versus agreement to sell. Another important aspect that must be understood by all of us is that we are members of a tenant co-partnership housing society. What it means is that our agreement to sell, you agreed to become a member of this society. The land and buildings are conveyed to the society, not to an individual, so that the land and buildings are owned by the society. So where do I stand in this whole relationship? The flat that has been purchased by me or you is actually space that has been allotted to you to use and to occupy. So in that context, you must understand that ownership of a flat is really having the allotment to use and occupy a part of the property which rightfully belongs to the society. And we all agreed to become members of this society through the instrument of agreement to sell. If you refer to the bylaws of the society, after the first few clauses which relate to definitions and descriptions, the very first effective bylaw, which is a commandment, is bylaw number 5, and the part A or the first part says that the primary object of the society is to obtain conveyance from the promoter of the right, title and interest in the land and buildings thereon. So having formed this society, it is our bounden duty and the duty of the managing committee to ensure that conveyance takes place and that the title of the property is transferred to the society. What happens if conveyance is not done? I mean, we have been living here for the last 4 years very happily. So what happens if there is no conveyance? Conveyance is a very important process because without conveyance, the property belongs to the promoter and he can mortgage that property, including the building in which we are staying. The second thing is that in the unfortunate event of the building collapsing, even if our building is insured and we have paid all the premiums, we cannot start to rebuild without the permission of the landowner. In this case, the promoter of the township. And of course, the promoter, being the landowner, has all the rights to sell open spaces, gardens, terraces, and parking spaces, even in the territory which we think is ours. So conveyance is of prime importance to each one of us. So friends, that brings us to the end of this first video, and we shall continue in the second video, in which you will see where our territory lies. So thank you once again, and bye-bye.